Good morning, boys and girls.
Good morning, Miss Miller.
Today, we are going to talk about the story, Miss Nelson is Missing. I would like you to look up at the smartboard before I start reading the story. I have a poster up there that says Text to Self Connections. That reminds me of I can relate. What do you all think text to self connections means when we're reading a story? Rain?
When you're reading a book and a book is like the other book, it's kind of like the same, and that's what text to text is.
That's what text to text is, you're right, when we can compare two different books. So if today we're talking about text to self, what would we compare this book to? Ayana? Ourself. So while I'm reading this book to you today, I want you to think about yourself and maybe a time when you've had an experience like this, okay? Now this story is called Miss Nelson is Missing. I want you to look at the front cover of the story. And we're going to make some predictions. What do we think that this story might be about just by looking at the cover? Jordan? Okay, they look pretty sad. We see some sad faces, and maybe their teacher is missing because she's sick. That's a great prediction. Rebecca?
It might be because that she might have to go to the doctor.
Maybe she's missing because she had to go to the doctor. Very good. Yes, ma'am.
I predict that the teacher has gone missing because it says Miss Nelson is missing.
That's a great prediction. We can make predictions based on the title and the illustrations on the front cover. Nathan?
Maybe she's been in an accident.
Maybe she was in an accident. Very good. The rest of you, I want you to lock your predictions in your heads. Lock them in there. And at the end, we're going to talk about those and see if our predictions were correct, okay? Miss Nelson is Missing by Harry Allard and James Marshall. And if I say that this story is by Harry Allard and James Marshall, what did those two people do in the story? Thanks.
They drew the pictures.
And what else did they do?
They wrote the words.
They wrote the words and they drew the pictures. And we know that the authors also were the illustrators because there is no one else listed. Miss Nelson is Missing. Here's our title page. Miss Nelson is Missing. While we're reading the story, I'm going to stop and explain some vocabulary, some big words that you might not understand, okay? The kids in room 207 were misbehaving again. What does it mean if the kids were misbehaving? What does that mean?
They didn't be naughty.
They were being naughty. They were not being nice. Spitballs stuck to the ceiling. Paper planes whizzed through the air. They were the worst behaved class in the whole school. Now settle down, said Miss Nelson in a sweet voice. But the class would not settle down. They whispered and giggled. They squirmed and made faces. Show me what it means to squirm. Wiggle around. Wouldn't that be hard to be a teacher if your students were wiggling around all the time?
Yes.
They were even rude during story hour. And they always refused to do their lessons. Something will have to be done, said Miss Nelson. The next morning, Miss Nelson did not come to school. Wow, yelled the kids. Now we can really act up. They began to make more spitballs and paper planes. Today, let's just be terrible, they said. Not so fast, hissed an unpleasant voice. What does unpleasant mean? What's an unpleasant voice? Sierra?
An unpleasant voice is when somebody says not so fast in a mean voice.
It's kind of like a mean voice, isn't it? A woman in an ugly black dress stood before them. "I am your new teacher, Miss Viola Swamp." And she rapped the desk with her ruler. "Where is Miss Nelson?" asked the kids. "Never mind that," snapped Miss Swamp. "Open those arithmetic books." What's arithmetic? What's arithmetic? Do you know what that is? It's a big 5th grade word for?
That means that you need to open the book right now because...
No, what's arithmetic? This is such a big word. Arithmetic is a 5th grade word for math. So she wanted them to open their math books and get busy. Miss Nelson's kids did as they were told. They could see that Miss Swamp was a real witch. She meant business. Right away she put them to work and she loaded them down with homework. "We'll have no story hour today," said Miss Swamp. "Keep your mouths shut," said Miss Swamp. "Sit perfectly still," said Miss Swamp. "And if you misbehave, you'll be sorry," said Miss Swamp. Days went by and there were no signs of Miss Nelson. The kids missed Miss Nelson. "Maybe we should try to find her," they said. Some of them went to the police. Detective McSmog was assigned to the case. He listened to their story. He scratched his chin. He said. "I think Miss Nelson is missing." Detective McSmog would not be much help. Other kids went to Miss Nelson's house. The shades were tightly drawn and no one answered the door. In fact, the only person they did see was the wicked Miss Viola Swamp coming up the street. "If she sees us, she'll give us more homework." They got away just in time. So if the shades were drawn, what were they?
They were down.
They were down. So maybe there was something secretive going on inside. Maybe something terrible happened to Miss Nelson. She was going to be gobbled up by a shark, one of the kids thought. But that didn't seem very likely. "Maybe Miss Nelson went to Mars," said another kid. But that didn't seem very likely either. "I know," exclaimed one know-it-all. "Maybe Miss Nelson's car was carried off by a swarm of angry butterflies." But that was the least likely of all. Do you think a bunch of butterflies could take away a car?
No.
The kids in room 207 became very discouraged. It seemed that Miss Nelson was never coming back, and they would be stuck with Miss Viola Swamp forever. They heard footsteps in the hall. "Here comes the witch," they whispered. Yes?
Yeah, that page is the same as the front cover.
It is, you're right. They're exactly the same. "Hello, children," someone said in a sweet voice. "It was Miss Nelson! Did you miss me?" she asked. "We certainly did," cried all the kids. "Where were you?" "That's my little secret," said Miss Nelson. "How about a story hour?" "Oh, yes," cried the kids. Miss Nelson noticed that during story hour, no one was rude or silly. What brought about this lovely change?" she asked. "That's our little secret," said the kids. Back home, Miss Nelson took off her coat and hung it in the closet, right next to an ugly black dress. When it was time for bed, she sang a little song. "I'll never tell," she said to herself with a smile.